My name is Penny, and I'm 27 years old. If you looked at me from the outside, you'd probably think I had everything figured out. I graduated from Stanford with a computer science degree, built my own app development company right after college, and before I knew it, money was rolling in faster than I ever imagined. People called me lucky. But lucky is a strange word. It makes success sound like an accident. Mine wasn't. I worked for every sleepless night, every line of code, every pitch. And if I'm being honest, part of the reason I worked so hard was because home never felt like home. I grew up in a neat suburban house with a white picket fence, the picture-perfect dream. My father sold insurance, my mother taught at the local school, and my younger sister Amber was the star of the family. From the outside, we were the kind of family neighbors admired. But inside those walls, the air was always colder than it should have been. Not physically cold, emotionally. It's hard to explain. They fed me, clothed me, gave me good schools. Nothing obvious was missing, yet I always felt like a guest in my own home. My parents never yelled at me, but they rarely hugged me either. It was as if there was an invisible glass wall between us. They looked at Amber with warmth, at me with duty. Amber was 3 years younger, and even as kids, she learned quickly how to read that difference. If I got an A, it was expected. If Amber got a B, it was celebrated with cake. I still remember one night in high school, I had just won a regional coding competition, beating students twice my age. I came home with the trophy excited, hoping just maybe this time they'd clap or hug me. Instead, my mom said, "That's nice, Penny. Don't forget Amber's soccer game tomorrow." That stung, because they never missed her games. Not once. Even when she barely touched the ball, they were there, cheering, smiling, acting like she was destined for greatness. Meanwhile, I sat in classrooms coding into the night, trying to prove myself to people who didn't seem to care. Amber picked up on it, of course. She rolled her eyes when I spoke, dismissed my accomplishments as nerdy stuff. We weren't close, and I doubt she ever wanted to be. To her, I was the awkward older sister who somehow always made her look better simply by being ignored. And maybe she was right. I felt invisible at home, like I was filling a role nobody really wanted me to play. That's why I buried myself in work and in skiing. Skiing was my escape, the one place where gravity and snow cared nothing for favoritism. On the slopes, I wasn't Amber's shadow or the daughter my parents tolerated. I was just me, fast, focused, free. By high school, I was competing at the state level. My parents never came. They always had excuses, work deadlines, something broken at home, or most often, Amber's soccer. But they never missed hers. I stopped inviting them. It hurt too much to keep hoping. As the years went on, I learned to stop expecting love. I told myself I didn't need it. My company became my validation. Each contract signed, each app launched. It was proof that I mattered at least somewhere. Yet the truth. Late at night, staring at my apartment ceiling, I'd wonder, why don't they love me? What is wrong with me that makes their smiles stop at Amber? When my business finally took off, I thought naively that maybe then they'd be proud. Surely money and success would bridge the gap. Instead, it seemed to widen it. They looked uncomfortable when I talked about my company, as if my achievements were an inconvenience. Amber even mocked me once, saying, "Don't brag, Penny. Nobody cares about your apps." That cut deeper than I let her see. But I had one dream left, the Alps. Ever since I was a kid, I'd wanted to ski in Switzerland. The pure white slopes, the sharp bite of the cold air. The kind of mountains that looked like they belonged on postcards. I told myself when I made my first million, I'd go. And when the day came, I booked the trip. No parents, no Amber, just me. For once, I wanted to feel alive without their shadows. The resort was breathtaking. It was the kind of place where celebrities disappeared from paparazzi, where the fire crackled in stone fireplaces and hot chocolate came in porcelain cups. The first days were bliss. I'd wake early, glide over fresh powder, and spend evenings by the fire with my muscles aching in that good way earned pain. For once, I felt free from comparisons, free from the quiet rejection of home. On the fourth morning, I woke to blue skies and untouched snow. It felt like the universe had given me a gift. I chose an expert-run, challenging steep, exactly the kind I thrived on. Halfway down, I felt unstoppable. Then a sound, at first like distant thunder, then closer, louder. My stomach dropped. Avalanche. The world exploded white. I pushed forward, tried to outski it, but the mountain was faster. The roar swallowed me snow, hitting from all sides. I screamed, but my voice vanished under the crash. A tree. The crack of bone. Then nothing. Darkness. Floating. Pain like fire threading through every nerve. Voices I couldn't understand. Lights flashing like dreams, sometimes English words, reaching me, but fading like echoes underwater. And then a hand holding mine, warm, steady, a woman's voice whispering, crying. When I finally woke for real, staring at a hospital ceiling, the pain was unbearable. My body felt broken in half. I turned my head slow, dizzy, and there she was, a woman sitting beside me, holding my hand as if it was the only thing keeping me tethered to life. She looked familiar, brown hair, like mine, strands of gray lines on her face carved by time. She smiled through tears when my eyes opened. "Oh, honey," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "Thank God you're awake." I croaked out words, my throat raw. "Do. I know you. Where are my parents?" Her smile faltered, her eyes filling with fresh tears. She didn't answer. Instead, she stood quickly. "Let me get the doctor." As she hurried out, panic spread through me. Who was she? Why did she look so much like me? Why did I feel a strange pull toward her I couldn't explain? My heart pounded as the door opened again, her and a man in a white coat with a German accent introducing himself as Dr. Mueller. "Miss Thompson, you've been through something very serious," he said, gently pulling a chair close. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck," I muttered. Then I pushed again, desperate. "What happened? Where are my parents?" The doctor and the woman exchanged a look, a long, heavy silence. My skin prickled. Something was wrong. Very wrong. That was the moment I realized the life I thought I knew was about to shatter. Dr. Mueller's eyes were kind, but they carried a weight that made my stomach twist. He adjusted his glasses as though buying time to choose the right words. "Miss Thompson, you were caught in an avalanche 4 days ago. You've been unconscious since then. You suffered multiple injuries, fractured ribs, a broken leg, and a significant head trauma. You're lucky to be alive." Lucky. That word again. I wanted to laugh, but it hurt too much to even breathe deeply. My head felt heavy, my body foreign, as though it belonged to someone else. I swallowed hard. "Okay," I whispered. "But where are my parents? Someone must have called them. They should be here." Dr. Mueller hesitated. The woman at my bedside lowered her gaze, her fingers trembling as she clasped them together. I noticed her nails were bitten down, as though she'd been gnawing at them through sleepless nights. "I did call your parents," Dr. Mueller said softly. Relief sparked inside me for a second. "Good. So where are they?" He exhaled, and for the first time since he entered, he seemed to carry more sorrow than authority. Perhaps it is better if she explains." He nodded toward the woman. She shifted in her chair, leaned forward, and reached for my hand again. I flinched, not because her touch was unwelcome, but because it felt too intimate, too familiar for a stranger. Her eyes searched mine, brimming with tears. "Penny," she said gently, "before I tell you, I need you to know, none of this is your fault." The hairs on the back of my neck rose. "Who are you?" My voice cracked, half from fear, half from exhaustion. Her lips trembled, but she spoke clearly. "My name is Sarah. I'm not just your aunt. I'm your birth mother." The words landed like a second avalanche, suffocating me in disbelief. My chest tightened. The monitors beside me quickened their beeping, and the room tilted sideways. "No," I croaked. "No, that's not possible. My parents, they would have told me. They—" My voice broke off, my throat raw. Dr. Mueller intervened, his voice calm, almost clinical. "When you were brought here, your condition was critical. I called your father first. I explained you required immediate neurosurgery. Without it, your chances of survival were slim." And my voice trembled. The doctor's eyes softened. "Your father said, 'That's not our real daughter anyway.'" Then he hung up. It felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. My ears rang the world, narrowing to a tunnel of disbelief. I shook my head slowly, as if refusing reality could erase it. No, he wouldn't. Dr. Mueller continued. "I called again. Your mother answered. I explained your injuries, the urgency. She said it was God's will, that if you survived, it was meant to be. If you didn't, it was also meant to be. She asked me not to call again." Tears blurred my vision. Why? Why would they do that if I'm their daughter? Sarah squeezed my hand tighter, her grip firm, desperate. Because you're not, sweetheart. Not in the way you thought. I had you when I was 16, too young, too scared. My mother, your grandmother, forced my older sister, the woman you call Mom, to raise you. She and her husband couldn't have children then, so you became theirs, officially, but never fully. Her words cracked open every memory I had, buried. The cold glances, the indifference, the way Amber shone under their love while I was left in shadow. Suddenly, it all aligned like pieces of a cruel puzzle. My lips quivered. So my mom, she's my aunt. Sarah nodded slowly, tears spilling over. Yes, your biological aunt. I shook my head, pressing my hands to my temples. The pain in my skull flared, but it was nothing compared to the chaos inside me. And Amber, her voice broke. Amber is their biological daughter. Once she was born, they didn't need you anymore. They resented having to keep you. They even tried to give you back to me, but your grandmother forbade it. She made them raise you. I felt hollow, as though every belief I'd built my life on had been gutted. My achievements, my desperate need for approval, it all made sense now. I wasn't unloved because I lacked something. I was unloved because I wasn't truly theirs. A sob tore out of me, raw and unrestrained. Sarah moved closer, brushing the damp hair from my forehead, like she had every right to, like she'd been waiting years to comfort me. I wanted to be there, she whispered. I watched from a distance. Birthdays, your graduation, your company launch. I followed it all, but they told me you were happy that interfering would ruin your life. I believed them. I stayed away. Her confession both comforted and enraged me. She loved me, but from afar. She cared, but let me suffer in silence. My voice trembled. So, all those years I thought something was wrong with me. It was never me. No, Penny, Sarah said firmly. It was never you. You are extraordinary. You always were. The room blurred with my tears. I wanted to believe her, but the betrayal was too deep, too sharp. Then why now? Why are you here now? She inhaled shakily. Because when your grandmother heard what your adoptive parents said, she called me immediately. I got the first flight I could. I wasn't going to lose you again. Not this time. Her words cracked open something inside me. Anger, grief, longing, all tangled together. My entire life had been a performance for people who never wanted me. And here was the woman who did, who had always wanted me, but stood in the shadows. I turned to Dr. Mueller, needing a distraction from the storm inside me. If they abandoned me then, how did I even survive? You said there was no neurosurgeon. The doctor glanced at Sarah and allowed a faint smile. You're alive because her husband's brother is one of the best neurosurgeons in the country. He dropped everything and came here for you. Sarah's lips curved into a trembling smile. Yes. My family saved you when the ones who raised you wouldn't. My throat ached. My body was broken. My life shattered. And yet, for the first time in years, I felt the faintest glimmer of something I had long stopped expecting: hope. But hope can be dangerous, because it makes you wonder what else you've been denied, and I wasn't sure I was ready for all the answers yet. The hospital room felt too small to hold everything Sarah had just told me. The beeping of machines, the sterile smell of antiseptic, the scratch of sheets against my skin, all of it faded beneath the crushing weight of betrayal. My parents know. My aunt and uncle had abandoned me in the most literal sense. They had left me to die on a cold mountain because in their eyes, I was never truly theirs. I wanted to scream, but my ribs burned every time I tried to draw a full breath. My voice came out broken, trembling. So, all those years, the way they treated me, the distance, the coldness, it wasn't my imagination. Sarah shook her head slowly. No, sweetheart, it wasn't you. They resented raising someone else's child. And once they had Amber, you became a reminder of a choice they never wanted to make. Her words pierced me deeper than the avalanche ever had. 1,000 tiny memories flashed through my mind like shards of glass. Birthdays with no candles blown out. Report cards shrugged at family photos where I stood at the edge, half cropped out. Suddenly it all made sense. I had been the unwanted child filling a role out of obligation. Tears blurred my vision. Do you know what it feels like to spend your whole life begging for scraps of affection, to walk into a room and know your sister will get the smile, the attention, the love, while you're lucky if they even ask about your day? Sarah's face crumpled with grief. Yes, I do. Because every time I saw it from afar, it broke me. I wanted to fight for you, but I was 16 when I gave birth. I had no power, no voice. Our mother, your grandmother, decided everything. She insisted your adoptive parents take you. She thought she was saving us both, but she never realized the damage it would do. I stared at her, my heart twisting. Anger and longing fought inside me like storm waves. And you just let them raise me. Let me grow up in that cold house, feeling like a mistake every day. Her hands trembled as she reached for me. I thought they were giving you stability. I thought maybe my presence would confuse you, make you feel torn. They told me you were fine, that you were happy. And I believed them, because the alternative was believing you were suffering, and I couldn't bear it. Her confession left me speechless. I wanted to hate her for her absence. I wanted to cling to her for finally telling me the truth. My chest ached with contradictions. I don't know if I can forgive you, I whispered. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I don't expect you to. I just want the chance to know you now, to give you what I couldn't before. Before I could answer, Dr. Mueller cleared his throat gently. His presence had almost vanished from my awareness, but his voice brought me back. Miss Thompson, if I may, your recovery will be long. Physical therapy monitoring for cognitive effects. But you are strong. I can already see it. I managed a hollow laugh. Strong. My whole life just fell apart. He offered a small, sympathetic smile. Sometimes when something falls apart, it reveals what was hidden all along. I lay back against the pillows, exhausted. My body throbbed with pain, my mind with betrayal. But beneath it all, a question gnawed at me, bitter and sharp. When you called my parents, I asked, my voice low, Did they know you'd call someone else? Sarah's face hardened, and Dr. Mueller glanced at her before speaking carefully. They knew nothing beyond their choice to refuse. I contacted your grandmother after they hung up. She gave me Sarah's number. Without that, you might not be here now. My heart clenched. My grandmother, the one person who had forced them to keep me, was the reason I was alive. And yet even she had been silent about the truth for 27 years. Why didn't Grandma ever tell me I asked? Sarah's eyes darkened. She thought it would protect you. She believed a clean narrative was better than a complicated truth. She didn't want you to feel abandoned by me, but in protecting you, she let them treat you like you didn't matter. I closed my eyes, the weight of it pressing down on me. My life wasn't what I thought it was. The people I called parents were my jailers. The girl I called my sister was the golden child only because I was the shadow. And the woman in front of me, claiming to be my mother, was a stranger I wanted desperately to believe. When I opened my eyes again, Sarah was still watching me, her expression raw. I know you don't trust me yet, but please let me stay. Let me be here while you recover. Just give me that chance. I should have pushed her away, should have said no. But instead, something inside me whispered yes. Because as shattered as I was, the truth was better than the emptiness I'd lived with for years. I nodded weakly. Stay. Relief washed over her face, and she squeezed my hand like she'd been holding her breath for decades. But even as I let her stay, another thought burned in me, quiet but relentless. If my adoptive parents could discard me so easily, what else were they capable of? The question wouldn't leave me, and I had a sinking feeling the answer would be darker than I could imagine. Recovery in the hospital became its own rhythm. Mornings with doctors, afternoons with Sarah reading by my bed, evenings where silence sat between us like an uninvited guest. My body hurt constantly, ribs wrapped in bandages, my leg trapped in plaster dizziness, striking whenever I tried to sit up too quickly. But the physical pain paled next to the storm inside my head. Sarah tried to fill the silence with stories. At first I listened with suspicion, each word weighed against my doubts. But gradually the images she painted began to seep through. She told me about her husband Mark, a kind man who had stood by her when she finally told him about me. She described their home, a cozy house with a garden full of wildflowers, children's shoes, always piled at the door. And then she showed me pictures. A tall teenage boy with a mischievous grin, Marcus 15, who lived for basketball. Twin girls 10 years old, Emma and Sophie, with matching curls and paint-stained hands. They love art, Sarah said, eyes glowing with pride. Like you used to. The photos blurred in my hands. Half-siblings. A family I never knew existed. A life that could have been mine had circumstances been different. My throat tightened. Do they know about me? Sarah nodded gently. They do now. They're excited. Marcus keeps asking when he can meet his older sister. He's never had one before. Her words struck me harder than she realized. I had been a sister all my life, but only in name. Amber never wanted me, never needed me. And now suddenly there were 3 strangers who were eager for me to exist. The contrast made my chest ache in ways I couldn't untangle. That night after Sarah left, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My body was too broken to move, but my mind wandered relentlessly. Could I really belong somewhere else? Could this woman who gave me life, but not a childhood, truly offer me a family now? The next morning, Dr. Mueller came to check my vitals. He frowned at the dizziness I still felt and warned me recovery would be slow. There may be lasting effects, he said gently. Memory gaps, balance issues. It is too early to know. I swallowed my fear, then asked the question I had been avoiding. Doctor, when you called my parents, what exactly did they say? I need to hear it again. He hesitated, then spoke with quiet gravity. Your father denied you. Your mother said your survival was in God's hands and refused further involvement. Their words were deliberate, Miss Thompson. I am sorry. It was like pressing on a bruise, painful but impossible to resist. I needed the sting because it reminded me their betrayal was real, not some fever dream. Later that afternoon, Sarah's phone rang. She stepped aside to answer, her face pressed against the window, her tone hushed. I wasn't meant to hear, but the walls betrayed her. What are you sure? A pause. Her shoulders stiffened. Yes, I understand. Don't tell her yet. When she turned back, her face was pale. I propped myself up despite the ache in my ribs. Who was that? Sarah sat down heavily, her hand shaking as she pushed hair from her face. That was your grandmother. A pang of dread shot through me. What happened? Is she okay? She's fine, but... Sarah swallowed, her eyes glistening. Your adoptive parents called her. They asked about your funeral. For a moment, the words didn't register. My... what? They think you're dead, Sarah whispered. They wanted to know when they should come to pay their respects. The room tilted. The monitor beside me beeped faster. I gripped the blanket, my breath shallow. They think I'm dead. And that's what they care about. Sarah's voice grew quieter, heavier. It's worse. They also asked about your will. About when they could start dealing with your estate. The air in my lungs turned to ice. My so-called parents had left me for dead, and before the dirt could even cover a coffin, they were circling like vultures over my money. I shut my eyes, my body trembling. I shouldn't have been surprised. But knowing it, hearing it confirmed, was a wound deeper than the avalanche had left. What did Grandma say? I whispered. She didn't tell them the truth. She was afraid of what they might do if they found out you were alive. She called me immediately, asked me what we should do. I stared at Sarah, the anger inside me, burning so hot it felt cold. What do we do? She hesitated. We could tell them you're alive, force them to face you. A bitter laugh escaped my throat, and give them the satisfaction of pretending they care. Her brows furrowed. Then what are you suggesting? I let the silence stretch, my mind racing, and then slowly the thought formed. Dangerous, sharp, but irresistible. What if we don't tell them? What if we let them think I'm dead? And see what they do. Sarah's eyes widened. Penny, that's risky. You don't know how far they'll go. I need to know, I said firmly. I've spent my whole life wondering why they treated me like I didn't belong. Now I want proof of who they really are. If they come to my funeral drooling over my money, then I'll know for certain. Her voice trembled. And if they do, I met her gaze, my own voice, low, steady. Then I decide what comes next. For a long moment, Sarah said nothing. The only sound was the steady beep of the monitor beside me. Finally, she exhaled. Your grandmother won't like this plan. Call her, I said. Ask her to go along with it, just for a little while. That evening, Sarah held her phone on speaker as she called my grandmother. The moment she heard my voice, the older woman burst into tears. Oh, Penny, I thought you were gone. When that doctor called, and your parents... Oh, honey, I thought I'd lost you. I'm alive, Grandma, I whispered, my own tears spilling. But I need your help. She listened as I explained the plan. At first she resisted, her voice trembling with fear. It's cruel, Penny, to let them think you're gone. I closed my eyes, breathing through the ache in my chest. They've been cruel to me my whole life. Please, I need to see their true faces. Silence. Then finally a resigned sigh. If this is what you need, I'll play along. But promise me one thing, you won't let them break you again. I promised, though deep inside I wasn't sure I could keep it. As Sarah ended the call, I felt the first flicker of something unfamiliar, not hope, not grief. It was sharper, colder, the beginning of a plan. They thought I was dead. Maybe for once that could work in my favor. 5 days later, Dr. Mueller finally cleared me for travel. My ribs still ached. My head throbbed with unpredictable pulses of pain, and I moved only with the help of a wheelchair. But I was determined. Switzerland had nearly killed me, and I refused to let it become my grave. Sarah arranged a private medical transport plane, sparing no expense. I protested weakly that it wasn't necessary, but she silenced me with a single sentence. "You're my daughter. Let me take care of you now." Her words left me speechless. No one had ever spoken them to me with such conviction. For so long, I'd been the afterthought, the tolerated child. Now here was someone who wanted me, even if she'd been absent for most of my life. I didn't know whether to cling to her or push her away. Instead, I stayed silent, staring out the plane window at endless clouds, wondering if this new chapter was going to heal me or break me further. When we finally touched down back home, my house felt different. Everything looked the same. The minimalist furniture, the glowing computer screens in my office, the clean counters. But it was as if the walls themselves carried the knowledge I had uncovered. This wasn't just my house anymore. It was the fortress I would use to expose the people who had once called themselves my family. That very evening, I called my lawyer, Jonathan. His voice cracked with relief when he heard me. "Penny." "Thank God. I was told." "That I died," I finished flatly. He paused. "Yes, your parents called me right after the avalanche. They said you'd been killed and asked me about your will." My stomach nodded, even though I expected this. What exactly did they want? They wanted immediate control of your assets. Your father asked if he could sell your company right away. Your mother pressed for access to your accounts. They were disturbingly eager. My throat tightened. "And you didn't tell them anything." "I told them I couldn't act without a death certificate. They were annoyed." "Penny, what is going on? Do they know you're alive?" I stared at the ceiling, my voice steady despite the rage boiling inside me. "No. And I don't want them to. Not yet." "Penny." Jonathan hesitated, the warning clear in his tone. "This is dangerous. They're already circling like vultures. If you pretend you're dead, things could get complicated legally." "That's exactly why I want you to help me," I said firmly. "I need to see what they'll do when they think I'm gone. I want evidence. Every word, every greedy move, every lie. Will you help me?" Silence. Then a resigned sigh. "I'll do whatever you need. But promise me you'll be careful. This isn't just about money, Penny. This is about people who already chose to abandon you once." "I know," I whispered. "That's why I have to see it through." After the call, Sarah sat beside me on the couch, her eyes filled with concern. "Are you sure about this?" I turned to her, the weight of my decision pressing down on me, but my resolve stronger. "I've spent my whole life wondering why they treated me like an outsider. Now I finally have the chance to make them show their true faces. I need to know, Sarah. I need to see it with my own eyes." She looked at me as though she wanted to argue, but instead she nodded slowly. "Then we planned this carefully. No mistakes." The days that followed became a blur of whispered strategies and late-night phone calls. My grandmother, though reluctant, agreed to host the funeral in 2 weeks, just as my adoptive parents had requested. She insisted it be small, intimate family only, which suited my plan perfectly. Sarah handled logistics while I worked with Jonathan. He drew up documents, ensuring that if anything went wrong, my assets would remain untouchable. I even authorized him to record all communications with my parents. On the 7th day home, Sarah wheeled me out into the garden to breathe fresh air. The autumn air was crisp leaves scattering across the grass. For a moment, it almost felt peaceful. Then she turned to me. "Penny, you understand once this funeral happens, there's no going back. Whatever they show you, whatever ugliness comes out, you'll never be able to unsee it." I looked down at my hands, thin and pale from hospital weeks. "I've already seen enough to know what they are. Now I just want the world to see it too." Her eyes softened, but her voice carried a warning. "Exposing them won't heal the scars they left." "I know," I said quietly, "but maybe it'll stop the bleeding." The following days were filled with eerie calm. I stayed in the house, slowly regaining strength, practicing moving from the wheelchair to crutches. Sarah cooked meals, told me more about Marcus and the twins, and even showed me drawings they'd made, crayon portraits of me, labeled Big Sister Penny. The innocence of those drawings contrasted so painfully with the ugliness of what my adoptive parents were plotting that I sometimes had to excuse myself to cry in private. One night, Jonathan came over with updates. He sat in my office flipping through papers. "Your parents have been pushing hard. They even contacted a realtor about listing your house. Amber apparently told a friend she's excited to move in here." The words sliced through me. Amber, my sister, who had never cared for me, now circling my house like it was a prize. I clenched my fists. Good. Let her dream. Because when I roll out at my own funeral, I want to see her face when she realizes none of it will ever belong to her. Jonathan hesitated. Are you sure you want to confront them that way? Public humiliation can backfire. They might lash out legally, emotionally. They already left me for dead, I snapped. What more can they take from me? The room fell into silence. Jonathan finally nodded, though his eyes were heavy with worry. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat alone in the dark living room. My body was still weak, my head still aching, but my resolve was iron. I thought about my parents' faces, the cold indifference, the way my father dismissed me as not his real daughter, the way my mother hid cruelty behind religion. They had thrown me away, and now they wanted to profit off my grave. Fine, let them come. Let them think I'm gone. Because when the curtains finally lift, they won't just see their daughter alive. They'll see the ghost of every cruel word, every neglectful glance, every betrayal they ever gave me. And this time, I wouldn't be silent. 2 weeks later, the day of my funeral arrived. The morning was eerily quiet. I woke early, nerves prickling through my skin despite the weight of painkillers dulling my body. Sarah helped me dress in plain black, not to mourn myself, but to blend into the shadows. My grandmother arrived first, her face pale and drawn. She kept wringing her hands, muttering that this was madness, that no good could come of it. But she stayed. She knew as well as I did that we needed to see the truth laid bare. By 1 in the afternoon, Sarah and I had positioned ourselves in the back of the house, hidden behind the kitchen door. A camera sat ready, discreetly angled to capture everything. My grandmother agreed to greet them at the door, to play her part in the performance. At exactly 2 o'clock, the crunch of tires sounded on the driveway. I held my breath as a sleek black car rolled up to the curb. Out stepped my adoptive parents, dressed head to toe in mourning attire that looked more like costumes than clothes. My mother wore a dramatic hat with a veil like some grieving widow in an old movie. My father's black suit was immaculate, polished shoes glinting in the autumn sun. Amber followed, her face pale, but not from grief. Her eyes darted around my property like she was cataloging it. In her hand, she clutched a piece of paper. A eulogy, no doubt. A script to make herself look like the heartbroken sister. Remember, I whispered to Sarah, my grip tightening on the arm of my wheelchair. Rick heard everything. My grandmother opened the door. Hello, she said, her voice wavering. Thank you for coming. My mother swept past her without so much as a nod. Where is everyone else? I thought there would be more people. Penny didn't have many close friends, my grandmother said softly. She was always focused on work. My father sniffed. Typical. Even in death, she couldn't manage to connect with people. The words sliced through me. Sarah's jaw clenched beside me. They followed my grandmother into the living room where Sarah waited, sitting rigidly in a chair. The moment my mother saw her, her face twisted in disgust. What is she doing here? She snapped. She has no right. She's not family. Sarah rose slowly, her expression calm, but her eyes blazing. Actually, I have every right. I'm Penny's mother. The room froze. Amber blinked, confused. My father's face darkened with fury. You gave up that right when you abandoned her. We raised her. Everything she owned belongs to us now. The word belongs made bile rise in my throat. Amber stepped forward, waving the paper in her hand. Where's the casket? Shouldn't there be a body? My grandmother's voice trembled. The body was badly damaged. We decided on cremation. Fine, my mother said sharply, adjusting her veil. Let's move on then. When can we deal with her estate? Sarah's head snapped toward her. Her estate? Of course, my father said, his tone businesslike. We've already spoken to lawyers. The company should be sold quickly before it loses value. Amber drifted towards the mantel, her fingers brushing the frames. I want this house, she said casually. I've always loved it. My mother nodded firmly. We'll sell everything. The business, the property, her belongings. All of it. Actually, legally, it comes to us as parents, my father corrected. Amber will get her share when we die. That's not fair, Amber protested, her voice rising. I'm her sister. I should get something now. I watched from the shadows, my heart pounding, recording every poisonous word. They weren't mourning. They weren't remembering me. They were dividing my life like scavengers picking at bones. Sarah's voice cut through their bickering. Has anyone even read her will? We don't need to, my mother said dismissively. Everything automatically goes to us. That's not how wills work, Sarah said evenly. Don't lecture us, my father snapped. You gave her away. You have no claim. That was it. I couldn't sit silent another moment. My hands shook as I rolled my chair forward, out from behind the door. Actually, I said, my voice echoing through the stunned silence, nobody has a claim to anything. Because I'm not dead. The air was sucked from the room. My mother's hand flew to her mouth, her veil trembling. My father's face went gray. Amber dropped her paper, her lips parting soundlessly. I wheeled closer, my gaze fixed on them. Surprised. You should be. After all, you thought you'd buried me. Amber was the first to speak, her voice trembling with disbelief. This is some sick joke. You can't be alive. I wrote a whole speech. I let out a bitter laugh. Let me guess. A touching tribute about how you've always loved me, or maybe just a shopping list of what you wanted from my house. My mother stumbled backward, shaking her head. No, the doctor said. The doctor said I'd die without surgery, I interrupted. And I would have, if not for Sarah, my real mother. She saved me, while you abandoned me. My father's face turned crimson, his fist clenched. This is fraud. You're faking this to cut us out of what's rightfully ours. Rightfully yours, I shot back, my voice rising. You never wanted me. You made it clear when you told the hospital I wasn't your real daughter. When you said if I died, it was God's will. I have the recordings. They froze, the color draining from their faces. My mother tried to recover, her voice trembling. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I cut her off. You didn't come here to mourn. You came here to celebrate your inheritance. You didn't lose a daughter. You thought you gained a fortune. Amber's lip quivered. We missed you. Really, I asked coldly. Then why does your speech read more like a real estate listing than a eulogy? My father's voice boomed, desperate. We're still your family. No, I said firmly, my voice steady for the first time. My family is right here. I gestured to Sarah and my grandmother, the people who actually care if I live or die. You can't cut us out, my mother pleaded, tears smudging her makeup. Actually, I can. I've already had my lawyer draw up new documents. You're out of my will. Permanently. My father's jaw tightened. We'll fight this. We'll take you to court. Go ahead, I said, leaning forward in my chair. But if you push me, I'll release the recordings. Everyone will hear exactly what you said while I was lying in a hospital bed. And then you'll lose more than money. You'll lose your reputation, your standing, everything. For the first time, they had no words. Amber's eyes darted between us, her face pale. She bent down, grabbed her discarded paper, and crumpled it in her fists. No speech, no mourning, nothing left to say. Finally, my mother turned, her voice a broken whisper. This isn't over. Yes, I said softly, it is. They left, slamming the door behind them. The silence that followed was heavier than any avalanche, but this time I wasn't buried beneath it. I was free. The silence after the door slammed was thick, almost suffocating. I sat there in my wheelchair, chest rising and falling in shallow breaths, staring at the empty space my adoptive parents had just occupied. For years, I had dreamed of their approval, a smile, a hug, a single moment where I was enough. Instead, their final gift to me had been proof that I was never wanted, never loved, never theirs. And somehow that truth didn't crush me anymore. It freed me. Sarah crouched beside me, her hand trembling as it touched mine. Are you all right? I met her gaze. Her eyes were wet, but not from anger or shame. They were brimming with pride. For me, for standing up to them. I'm better than all right, I whispered, voice steadier than I expected. For the first time in my life, I feel lighter. My grandmother moved closer, her small frame stooped with age, but her presence unshakable. She cupped my cheek with her wrinkled hand. I'm sorry, Penny. I should have told you the truth years ago. I should have fought harder to protect you. I covered her hand with mine. You saved me. You gave Sarah the chance to come back. That's more than enough. We sat together in that quiet room, 3 generations, connected by secrets, lies, and now finally truth. The days that followed blurred into a strange mixture of healing and rebuilding. Jonathan came by to finalize the documents, ensuring my adoptive parents no longer had any legal claim over me or my estate. He warned me they might try to contest the will, but I didn't care. I had the recordings. I had the truth. They had nothing but their own greed to choke on. 1 week later, a message appeared on my phone. A text from my mother. We're sorry. We were overwhelmed. Please forgive us. We miss you. My thumb hovered over the screen for only a second before I hit delete. No reply. No more begging for scraps of love. Instead, I turned my attention to something new. Someone new. Sarah had kept her promise. She brought Marcus, Emma, and Sophie to meet me. I braced myself for awkwardness, for distance. But the moment Marcus stepped through my door, towering and lanky, his grin wide as he said, Hey, big sis, something inside me cracked open. Not the old crack of pain, but the sweet rupture of belonging. The twins rushed past him, each holding a drawing. Emma's was of the four of us, together, me in a wheelchair, but smiling, surrounded by hearts. Sophie's was of a mountain, a skier at the top, with the words, "You can do it, Penny." I laughed, tears spilling down my face as I pulled them into my arms. For the first time in my life, I was a sister in the truest sense. Not a shadow to Amber, not the unwanted child tolerated in silence. I was wanted, celebrated, loved. That evening, Sarah's husband, Mark, joined us for dinner. He greeted me warmly, no hesitation in his eyes, just acceptance. Over plates of pasta and the chaos of children chattering, I felt something I hadn't known. I'd been starving for family. A real family. Later, after the kids had gone to bed, Sarah and I sat on the porch. The autumn night was cool, stars pricking the sky above us. She poured me tea, her hand steady now. "I know I can't change the past," she said quietly, "but I want to be here for your future, if you'll let me." I took a sip, staring out at the garden. "You already are." She smiled, then a smile filled with years of longing, finally finding a home. As weeks passed, I threw myself into recovery. Physical therapy was grueling. My leg healed slowly, and the head trauma left me with dizzy spells. The doctor said I might always walk with a cane. At first, that news crushed me. Skiing, the one place I had felt free, might be gone forever. But then I realized skiing wasn't my escape anymore. I didn't need to fling myself down mountains to prove I was alive. I was living now in ways I never had before. My company flourished under Jonathan's careful watch. Investors reached out, new contracts landed, but for once I didn't drown myself in work to avoid emptiness. Work was just work. Life was bigger. One evening, while Marcus practiced basketball in my driveway, and the twins painted chalk flowers on the sidewalk, I leaned on my cane and watched them. Sarah came to stand beside me, her arm brushing mine. "You know," she said softly, "sometimes the best things in life come after the worst storms." I looked at her, then at the children, then up at the sky. Sometimes, I agreed, you have to lose everything to realize what was never really yours to begin with. I thought of Amber, my adoptive parents, their greedy hands grasping at my life, and I thought of Sarah, of my grandmother, of the siblings who had embraced me without hesitation. The difference was stark. I no longer craved the love of people who had chosen to abandon me. I no longer ached for their approval. Instead, I felt a strength I had never known, the strength to define my own worth, to choose my own family. The avalanche had nearly killed me, but in a way, it had also saved me. It buried the lies, unearthed the truth, and forced me to confront the life I had clung to out of desperation. Now I was free. Broken bones would heal, scars would fade, but the lesson would remain: I was never the problem. I was never unworthy. I was simply in the wrong family. And now I finally had the right one.